So you want to start writing your book and you're staring at a blank screen. Where do you start? It can feel so intimidating as you're staring at that little cursor flickering on your computer screen. In this episode of Answering the Call to Write, I'm going to tell you how you can get unstuck and start writing that book you've been dreaming about. Welcome, awesome authors. You are listening to the Answering the Call to Write podcast. I'm your host, Meliza, and this episode is brought to you by Paper Crown Media. Hello, awesome authors, and welcome to this episode of Answering the Call to Write. I am absolutely thrilled to be with you on this beautiful day. I hope you are ready to get started with writing your book. If you have been feeling slightly intimidated by that blank screen, then stick around. I'm going to tell you how you can get unstuck. I'd love to share my story with you on how I started writing my very first book. It's called Untangled, and it is a non-fiction Christian book specifically about getting free or breaking free from the lies that keep you stuck and discovering your true purpose and identity. Now, I had known for several years that God was calling me to write this book. I had this incredible encounter with Him, and I knew that I had to share the revelations and the experience and everything I had learned. I had to share that with the world. I knew that there was someone that needed that light that was there for me when I needed it most. And I had some incredible, encouraging prophetic words that really confirmed this sense of calling that I needed to write and get this book done, get it out into the world. So after wrestling with this calling for nearly a decade, my husband finally bought me a laptop for my birthday, gave it to me and said, go and write this book. You know you've got to do it, so just crack on with it. So I opened up my laptop and I started typing. I wrote about my entire history from the very beginning to where I was at that time. I shared all of the tragic things that had happened, all the things I was wrestling with, my questions about God and His character. I wrote about my encounter with God in the cinema, watching the movie Tangled. I shared all the revelations that came out of that experience and how I discovered the nature and the character of God. These are amazing things, amazing truths. I have an interesting story. So I wrote it all down in this manuscript and I shared it with some leaders at church. And they were trying to be very encouraging, but the feedback I received wasn't very great because the manuscript wasn't fit for purpose. It was an interesting story, but everybody on this planet has some story or an interesting story. So why would somebody need to read what I wrote? And that is the question that I wish I'd asked myself before I sat down to start writing. Now, I didn't waste any time. It was a good exercise to get all of that information out onto paper. And I always encourage people, look, if the opportunity comes, just sit down and write. Just start by writing out your life journey, or just journal about the thoughts and the feelings and the experiences that you're processing in the moment. Taking the time out to write is great. There's always a benefit to it. However, when you are writing a book, there are some key questions that you need to answer before you actually will produce a manuscript that is fit for purpose. So I had to go back to my manuscript, and I just want to say here that I initially felt very discouraged. I felt like maybe my story isn't good enough or there's no value in it. And that was such a wrong thought to have. So I want to encourage you today, if you're listening and you have been discouraged, you maybe haven't received any positive feedback about your manuscript, don't give up. I only needed to make some tweaks. I still had a great story with some awesome truths, but I didn't need to share it all. I didn't need to share my entire story. And to be honest, I know now that there was more than one book locked up in me, that I didn't have to share it all in my very first book. So how do we actually create a manuscript that is going to be fit for purpose, that a publisher will look at and they will think, this is a book that's not only going to help people, but it's going to create an income or generate an income? Because if you want to work with a traditional publisher, you need to be able to prove that you are solving a problem for somebody that is going to actually generate an interest enough for that traditional publisher to invest in you so that they can make a return on their investment. And if you're self-publishing, you want to make a return on all the time and money that you're going to be pouring into that book yourself. So yes, it's not about making a profit or making money, but you need to know that what you're going to be sharing is actually something that is in demand, that somebody somewhere is looking for the solution that you are carrying. So I had to go back. I had to go back and rewrite my manuscript. I rewrote Untangled at least 4 times. I think it was closer maybe to 5 times. And as I was writing and rewriting, I started to figure out all of these things that my reader needs to get from the book. And that is the pivotal question. What is it that your ideal reader is looking for? And how can you put it into a book? Now, that is a huge question. And I can understand if you're sitting in front of a blank screen and you feel intimidated by that, right? That's a big responsibility on your shoulders to bring something really helpful with your story. But that is exactly what you need to do, especially if you are writing nonfiction. If you are just writing purely for entertainment purposes, you need a story, you need a character that is going to go on a journey, that is going to overcome an obstacle. But if you are writing nonfiction or self-help, you are taking the reader on the journey. They become the hero of their own story. It's not about you. It's even if you have a spectacular story, your story is there to help the reader be the hero of their own story. So where do you begin? Where do you start? Let's tackle this. So there are some questions that you need to answer before you sit down to write your book. The very first question is, why should somebody read my book? Why? Okay. If you can articulate that question clearly, man, you are way ahead of the game. The second question is, what problem am I solving for my reader? Are you able to articulate that clearly? To give you an example, the problem that I was solving for my reader was helping them reconnect with the heart of the Father. I was helping them find their true identity and purpose by discovering how much God loves them. And then I needed to clarify who is looking for the solution that I'm offering. Who am I speaking to? And I had to build a real picture of that person in my mind. Now, I knew that the person that I needed to reach was the person who I was before my encounter with God. They are looking to move from simply having knowledge of God to actually have an experiential knowledge of God, to not just know about Him, but to know Him intimately in an experiential way, to be able to hear His voice, to be able to live in a true connection with their Creator. So I was looking for that person who felt like I did before I encountered God. I was frustrated because I felt like everything I was reading in the Bible wasn't quite adding up to what I was experiencing in real life. I was overwhelmed, completely consumed with all the issues I was going through emotionally. I was battling with low self-esteem and depression. I was a young mom with little kids. I was so busy. I had no time to open my Bible and study it and pray for hours because life was super demanding. I was working full time and then trying to raise very little kids. It was hectic. So I had to go and remember that person because I couldn't really remember that person after I had that experience with God and my life changed and transformed so massively. So it's important to go back to the place where you were before you discovered the answers and the solutions. Oftentimes we forget what people are feeling when they are wrestling with that issue. So you've got to go back and remember who you are speaking to. Okay, now I can get on a tangent about this and I don't want to lose you. um, so I'm just going to summarize those three questions. It's why should somebody read my book? What problem am I solving or what solution am I offering for my reader? And then the third question is who is looking for this particular solution? And you need to be able to articulate those three things very clearly. Once you've got those three questions nailed down, I know it's not enough to get you going. So what you need to do with that information now is you've got to ask yourself some more questions. So once you have all that information down, you've written it out, you've journaled it, and you've sifted through it, then you need to have a think about what is the one thing I want my reader to walk away with at the end of this book. When they close that final chapter, what is the one thing that I want to leave with them that's going to make a difference in their life? Can you articulate that? When you have that one thing nailed down, then ask yourself, where is my reader now? And where do they want to be? So what are they experiencing right now? What is their life looking like before they read the book? Okay. Are they struggling emotionally, financially, physically, relationally, or spiritually? What are they struggling with specifically? And where do they want to be? So what does it look like for the reader after they've read my book? How will the stuff that I'm going to share, or how will that one thing that I'm going to share with them, how is it going to impact them relationally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, financially? Where is it that they want to be? What would they like to experience? What would they love to have? And how is that one thing that I'm going to give them going to help them attain that place? How are they going to get there? And then how am I going to help my reader get from that before situation or that before state to the after state or the after situation to get them into that place where they're longing to be? And then break it down into small steps. Like what is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5? Okay, so you want to take your reader on a journey. And we all know you're not going to be able to share everything with them in one book. But if you take that one thing and you break it down into, let's say, for example, 10 small baby steps to get from point A before state to point B after state, what does that journey look like? How can you take them step by step by step so that they can experience the same revelation, knowledge, experiences that you have experienced? So as you go through these questions and you wrestle with these questions, you're going to start to see how your story is going to help someone come out of their trouble or out of their problem and walk into their solution. And that is super important. That's going to help you get a better idea of what you need to write because you know what solution you are offering and who you are offering that solution to. You will probably remember from your English or Afrikaans or any language lesson that every story has a beginning, middle, and end. So it is important that we have the same thing when we write our books. There is this little formula that I always use when I create a piece of writing. I tell the reader what I'm going to tell them, then I tell them, and then I tell them what I've told them, right? So the beginning, setting up your story, making sure that the reader is going to connect all the dots, that they're going to receive what they need to receive from your story. Then you share your story, and then you summarize, or you help them take that story and apply it in a practical way that's going to move the needle for them, that's going to make a difference for them, that's going to solve a problem for them, right? You can use that same formula for every single chapter as well. It's a really good formula to use. So as you look at the content that you've just been working through and you see the reader's journey, what are the things that you need to tell them before they go on the journey? What are the key things that's going to help them work through your book effectively? Make a note of those things, because that will be your introduction. Then you have your reader's journey that you've just wrestled with, and then you want to think, what are the things, the main strategies and tools in my book that I want to summarize at the end that's going to help the reader make it their own in a very practical way? What are the things that I need to remind them of at the end of the book? Because if they've been on this journey, they may have forgotten some of the points, So you want to just maybe summarize the book, bring out the key truths, and that will be like a conclusion or a last chapter, or even an epilogue of some sort. Now you have so much information that you can work with. And as you sit down and you look at that blank screen, it might be a good idea to just start by writing your introduction, a summary of the journey, and the conclusion of the book. Just break it down into bullet points, and you will see a framework open up. Once the framework is opening up, you can start tackling every bullet point on its own. Just focus on one piece of the puzzle until the whole puzzle or book is complete. And that's going to take some time. So don't put any pressure on yourself, but at least you won't get stuck, because you know what you're going to be writing about and who you are writing that book for. And that will make a huge difference to your writing process. I know this from experience. Now, if you are interested in taking the first 3 steps, those first 3 questions, I have got a resource that can help you really clarify those first 3 questions that I shared. It is free to download. Just click on the link in the description below and get started. Take some action and start writing your story, sharing that light and truth and knowledge and awesomeness that is in you. There is somebody who needs your story. This is why we are here. This is why we are doing what we're doing. These stories are not for us, they are for someone. There is someone sitting in darkness waiting for you and the light that you are carrying. If you don't write that book, if you don't share it with the world, how will people find the solutions that you are carrying? And you do carry solutions from heaven in your heart. I also want to encourage anybody who is interested in getting further mentoring or training. We have the amazing Paper Crown Media subscription. In the subscription is a training library that is going to help you with every phase of your writing journey. And it doesn't matter if you're looking for self-publishing or traditional publishing solutions, we really do cover all the bases. In the training library, we will share a 7-step writing process where I literally guide you through the entire process of writing your book. Then we also explain your publishing options. We believe in giving you the options that will suit your needs and that you can afford. So we can help you publish on your own, or we can help you self-publish. We also have a publishing arm called Paper Crown Publishing. This publishing arm is open to our Paper Crown Media subscribers for submission. We hope to get to know our subscribers personally so that we will already know whether the content that you are producing is content that we want to publish. And we also offer a promotional service to help you get that message out there. Now, one of the things that I have learned as an author is that there are many people and businesses out there that can help you write your book or publish your book, but very few publishing services will give you the tools and strategies you need to market and promote your book. So we offer that in our training library as well. We don't just want you to write and publish, we want your message to get into the hands and the hearts of the people who need it most. There is a wonderful community that will support you and walk with you, pray with you, and encourage you as you write, publish, and promote that message that has been burning in your heart. So if you're interested in joining the Paper Crown Media family, then check out the link in the description below. I would love to get to know you and get to know about the message that you are carrying. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you again same time next week. Bye.